All right, good morning, everybody. Again, this is our November Credo presentation.
Thanks.
For those of you who don't know, this is a time when people share about themselves and their journey and where they're at now on their journey, as we know the journey never ends. And we have people who talk about all kinds of stuff along their spiritual journey that has helped them, and things about their life that have led them to the next spot on their journey. Today we have Tennah Murphy with us. Yay! Tennah has been attending UUCC for about 20 years.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, I was little when I started.
She co-teaches the elementary class in the Children and Youth RE program and is also one of our new OWL instructors for our senior high, which will happen this year. She has participated in several services and works hard to show how much she cares about community and communication. At UUCC and out in the world, Tennah dedicates her time to understanding others, herself, and how to simply be in community with others and nature, etc.
Yes.
And you will be hearing more about the etc. So please welcome Tennah Murphy. And there's another chair.
There is a chair, not moving. Come sit. So, disclaimer, I did finish writing this morning. So, I've had a very crazy week, and I'm so glad to be here because it is so much more peaceful. I'm a preschool teacher. That should tell you everything you need to know. Oh boy. So, first, I would like everybody to take a deep breath in. Deep breath out. And a deep breath in. Hold it. Let it out. Hi.
Hi.
I hope y'all been having a good week. Yeah, here and there. Well, as Paula said, my name is Tennah, and I've been going here for about 20 years. Now, back when I was in high school, I did do something like a Credo presentation, but I don't remember what I said. After all, that was 7 years ago, and I can barely remember what I said 5 minutes ago. Nevertheless, one thing has never changed. I've always poured my heart into all that I do, and I hope that what I have to say fills your heart with the strength to do so as well. To start, I would like to share a poem from Emily Dickinson. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin unto his nest again, I shall not live in vain. Now, when I think of this poem, I think of what both my mind and heart have always been drawn to, the art of connection and community. As a UU, this probably sounds like a broken record since we strive for building a community that values being together in times of joy and need, but to me, it goes even beyond the people I know and love. To me, connection and community are in everything. Where there is a push, there is a pull. Where there is a tree, there is a seed. Where there is water, there is fire. Everything has its inherent community simply by existing. And everything is connected by virtue of there being more than one thing. In the words of one of my 4-year-old students, community is everything and everyone. Therefore, it makes the most sense to me that I would pour back into these ideas since there is no way for me to be without them. And important to note is that pouring back into this idea does not have to be some grand gesture. And for me, it rarely ever is. I look at the leaves on trees and I take a deep breath. I laugh and smile with my students a lot, all day long. I grieve things that aren't even gone. And I do my very best to take care of my friends when they need, just like they do for me. I have already noted that I do not live in vain because I am here and I do my best to help the world around me. I am here and I am me, and I will never be anybody but myself. However, for many, it can be hard to accept the fact of just being. And either due to external pressures or lack of knowing how to just be, we feel the disconnect and lack of community. And quite frankly, that is the hardest part of all. Giving yourself enough grace to step back and just exist. Without any ideals pressing down on you. Everyone's journey looks different, and it would be foolish of me to tell you how to do this. I simply can't. However, what I can offer is the idea that it is possible. It is possible to give your heart to yourself and to others, and to revel in the interconnectedness, see what I did there, of it all. I'll be honest. Coming to this conclusion was not an easy one, and I don't think I would have come to it without being a part of UUCC or the traveling I did as a teen in my early 20s. In particular, ideas of meditation, mindfulness, and not really understanding the language of the country I was in really helped to open up my understanding. When you can't communicate with words, you have to find other ways to communicate. When your art professor makes you meditate for an hour each morning at 6 a.m., which is just brutal. Oof. And when you grow up with the ideas of interconnectedness and environmentalism poured into you every Sunday, you begin to see all of the little things, like how people interact with each other nonverbally, how much you are aware of the fact that meditating is hard, and gosh, how much your back hurts, and how valuable it was to have your congregation when friends you know did not have the luxury of feeling good in theirs. Knowing all of this helped me to notice how I interacted with the world around me, what I liked, what I didn't like, and how my experience, though not unique, was still mine to feel. And that is why I can't tell you how to do this, how to just be, because what happened for me might not have happened for you. It might not happen for you. But once again, I implore you to think of the poem I shared and the idea of not living in vain. By being in the here and now, you are in community and you are helping others by simply being yourself and aiming to do good things. And that is all I can ask you to do. I would now like to say thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, please ask me.
Yes. You mentioned your art teacher, like, made you guys meditate. Was this as a way of, like, making sure you didn't bring any other baggage into classes, or what?
No, so I went on a 2-week trip to Japan.
Uh-huh.
And it was a mindfulness and meditation class, so that was part of the course.
Ah.
And so we did get to meditate with a couple of Buddhist monks, which was a really great experience. But our teachers had us get up at 6 in the morning, every single morning, every day before we did something. I'm not a morning person. I'm not, I'll admit it. I don't want to be up before the sun is up. Same, ever. So I had to sit there and listen to my classmates who are also awake and sitting in the same room as me, chew and sniff and snuff. And I would sit there and I'd be like, my back hurts. And one time, my professor looked at me and she goes, you know what, Tennah, you seem a little tense. And I was like, I'm here. I'm here. But it was useful. You know, meditation is something that's very difficult, and you have to work at it in order to really get good at it. And so I've worked on it, and I've found different meditation styles that work for me, that help center me and remind me that I am a physical body in a physical space. And that is very important. So, thank you for your question. Yes.
Have you been part of any other faith than you?
No, but I have, so many of my friends are ex-Catholics and grew up Presbyterian. And so a lot of the people are still in different sectors of the Christian faith. And one of my friends growing up was Jewish, and so I used to go to synagogue with him all the time, and I went to his very Jewish wedding. That was so lovely. It was really sweet. So I grew up interacting with a lot of different, you know, faiths and religions and spiritual ideas, but no, I grew up here. This is where I grew up, and I'm glad.
Have you ever been disappointed?
Disappointed? In general?
That's good.
More specifically about something, and what did you do about it?
Yeah, I've absolutely been disappointed about stuff. But when I'm disappointed, I go, this too shall pass. And I suck it up and I keep going. So, and I'm not in like a, I can't, like, I don't have to feel my feelings, but like I let them happen and I go, okay, that happened. I'll move on now. So, yes.
How has your experience as a preschool teacher informed kind of how you react to things, or what have they taught you?
Oh, they taught me a lot. So, and part of it also depends on like the discipline style of parents. Because some parents have different styles and you have to accommodate all of these different children in one space. And so a lot of it has boiled down to being gentle, but setting boundaries and making sure that it's like, this is what I'm here to do, knowing that they know that this is what I'm here to do, and let me help you help me, essentially. And so
So do you now do that yourself?
all the time. All the time. Like I try to extend the patience I have for children, which is a lot, to the patience I have for everything else.
No, I mean, you actually set boundaries and
Oh,
with
yeah.
other people.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you practice what you're.
Oh, yes. I mean, I wouldn't, otherwise I wouldn't do that. You have to practice what you preach.
When you asked, but I was actually thinking like a very similar question, and that was, how has your experience coming up in the UU shaped how you interact with the families and with the kids? But I imagine it's probably the same, but.
Well, yeah, it's very similar. There's a model by Tennah, who's a psychologist, and it's described as an ecological model. So it's like you have the individual child, and then you have their family, and then you have the larger community, and then you have all of the other external factors that exist within society. And so growing up in UUCC and within the Unitarian Universalist faith, and the ideas of interconnectedness being so like ingrained into what we're doing, makes looking at that model very, very easy. And so the moment I saw that model, I said, yes, that's what makes sense to me. And so when I interact with children, I always like, if they're having a bad day, I'm like, this is not because they have anything against anybody else. This might be because of something that's going on at home, or they might not have slept enough, or they could be hungry, or all of these different factors that you might not necessarily think about when you interact with another person, becomes very apparent when you're like actually studying that ecological model and being like, okay, how do you talk to somebody who doesn't necessarily know how to express their feelings in a full, appropriate way?
There's a plenty of adults, so you're like.
Exactly. So, yes.
Yeah, just working with preschoolers, and this might be too personal, does it make you want or not want to have kids?
Oh, I definitely want kids. I think that they're great. They're hilarious and they're absolutely free serotonin. Like I was, yeah, free serotonin. So I used to nanny for a family, and I got to meet with them yesterday, and it was so heartwarming because he's like 1.5, but I've known him since he was 3 months old. So he was in his mother's arms. I got out of my car and he immediately was like, I want my Tennah. And so I picked him up, and then he pointed at my car and he went, blue car. And I said, yeah, that's my car. You're right. But like that kind of feeling is something I can't ever, describe. It's just like, my bubby. So.
Are you seeing the influence of early screens on your children?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
What's that mean?
Part of it is making sure that in the classroom and it's not just screens, it's a whole bunch of other external stressors and the amount of information that their parents are also getting and the stressors that their parents are having. But it results in like not necessarily reduced attention spans, but a more individualistic approach to life as opposed to a communal approach to life. So one of the things that we do is we have a computer in our classroom. And then the kids are allowed to have, 10 minutes of screen time on it each. But we have very kind of like, we are all going to do this together when we're doing this. It's not an individual kid on the computer. And it doesn't even get used every single day because we know that we want the kids to play because when they're playing, they're learning, social emotional intelligence by trying to work things out with other kids. We're trying to get them to do physical activities so that they have better fine motor skills. We're trying to get them to do other things so that they're building their eye strength and everything. And like, so yeah, but early screens are a blessing and a curse in some ways. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, depends.
You mentioned being in another country where you didn't know the language.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Will you talk a little bit about that experience?
Oh, yeah, so when I first, so I've been to Germany, Austria, Japan, and Korea. And I lived in Korea for 2 years, but the first little bit of when I lived in Korea, I didn't know the language. Like I knew how to say hello and I knew how to say no and thank you in bathroom. And help. But I didn't. And so I had to learn, I watched what everybody else was doing in order to figure out, oh, that's what that means, or this is what this is. And at the time, I was working with 3-year-olds who were also still learning Korean. And so we were both learning the language together at the same time. And so we had come up with our own method of communicating with each other that was mostly nonverbal. And so if I gave them the look that was like, they were like, oh, but back off. But if I went, they'd be like, oh, okay. And so and I've always been interested in like ideas of nonverbal communication and what it looks like and like how what it means to be a human in the sense of like the animal human, not just a person. But like how does our behavior differ from the behavior of cats or differ from the behavior of dogs, and what's similar and what's not similar, and how are humans expressing affection based on the society that they grow up in versus the family culture that they grow up in versus just how they are as an individual. So not knowing the language made me look at all those little tiny details of how people bowed when they were talking to somebody or kept their eyes on them or blinked a little too much or didn't blink enough or, stuff like that. And then the words came later, but I had I had an understanding with the lady who worked at the 7-Eleven downstairs. So I would walk into the 7-Eleven downstairs and she would go, 안녕하세요. And I would be like, when I would walk and I would get my stuff, I would come back to the counter and I'd put it down. She'd be like, oh, no, 너무 이뻐. 엄청 이뻐, which means you're really pretty. Oh, 감사합니다. Thank you. Yes. And then she'd be like, and then I'd walk out the door. She sounds lovely. She was great. I loved her. She gave me free stuff on my birthday one day. Nice. So shout out to her. I miss her every single day. But like before I knew what she was saying, I was just kind of like, oh, she's got a positive, bubbly personality. She's talking to me. She wants to communicate with me. So trying to figure that out was very fun. Yes.
Yeah, and you quoted Emily Dickinson, and I was just reading a book about autism, and they stated that she had Asperger's, but you can see that she definitely socially connected and connected to the world more than we might think of as for the people who be, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a different way of presenting your worldview,
Yeah.
but it's still there and it's still very, very important.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
How did you happen to go to all these countries? Like, what was the impetus to do all that? Really?
So when I went to the high school that all the language magnets feed into in Charlotte.
Mhm.
And so I studied German and we had a study abroad trip. And so I went to Germany for about a month. And it was 2 weeks in Stuttgart and 2 weeks in Frankfurt and then a weekend in Salzburg. So we were in Austria for a weekend. And then when I got to college, they had the opportunity for the study abroad in Japan, which was a 2-week trip. And we just stayed in Tokyo. And there was so much to do in Tokyo that that's all that we did. And then when I graduated in 2020. So there was no work for me to have being a German translator here in Charlotte. And so I was looking for other things and I saw a post that was like, hey, would you like to teach abroad? In Korea, we're looking for English teachers. I said, hey, I like English. English is a Germanic language. I have some extra secret knowledge. And so I applied and I told my friend that I had met in Germany, you know, a couple months prior. And I said, hey, I'm thinking of moving to South Korea. And she said, okay. And I said, okay. And then I said, I'm gonna do it. And she said, got it. So I did it. And then I was there for 2 years. And then I came back home. So I just kind of do things. If I want to do it, I'm gonna find a way to do it.
I wish I had your confidence.
It's not I don't think it's necessarily confidence. It's more that I feel like it's important to do the things that you know will better yourself and better those around you. And so by going other places, I can then come back home and say, hey, this is what I learned. This is all about learning.
My problem is getting started, honestly.
Yeah, that is, yes, that's why this was finished this morning and not several days ago when I had time.
How do you find your experiences in other countries widen your view, like through the lens of Unitarian universalism? Did it affect kind of your view of how things are interconnected, or did it just strengthen it, or?
Yeah, it definitely strengthened it, and people talk about like ideas of culture shock. And I felt like I had a lot less of that. Like I never felt alone because I knew that wherever I was going to go, there was a way for me to find community, regardless of where I was. Because we've always, like, at least when I was growing up, there was this saying that was always said that was like, no matter where you go, your home is here. And so the idea of taking your home with you, and so I had a little bit of my home because I had, you know, my ideas about Unitarian Universalism, and I just kind of held them close to me. And then, you know, when I was over there, I was like, this is chill. Or like I would meet somebody and they would say something and I'd be like, that reminds me of this. Or that reminds me of this thing. And then, so that was an easy way to find connections too. So.
Are there any questions on Zoom?
Ellie, you got questions? We cannot hear you if you have questions.
No, you did a great job, though.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any last question that anybody has before we go?
Yeah, have you got enough social support with other people here, your age? I mean, most of us in this room are my age.
To me, I find my social support in all ages.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't have to have somebody who's directly my age in order to connect and feel secure.
Yes.
You know, like, when I get to talk to Paula, I'm like, yeah, I'm having a great time. Or like, I find it's most rewarding when I get to talk to the kids.
Yeah.
That's what means a lot to me. That's why I'm here on Sundays doing this, because that's what makes it fun. If I was talking to somebody my age, which I do, there's one right there on the screen. But it's different, you know, like the things that I would talk about with my friend, it's very different than what I might talk about with the kids. Or the kids might say something and I might go, you know, I haven't thought of that one. Or, you know, I haven't had that question in a really long time. Why did I have that question? What was the purpose of that question? Oh, I never had that question. Let's answer it now, you know, so I don't have to have people my age in order to feel that sense of community and that strength. And it's really great to see people who are much older than me listening to me. Because I'm like, why would they want a young whippersnapper up here telling them things they might already know?
Well, thank you. This was a good reminder. It was a good reminder that there's connections to be had in multiple places with multiple ages. And that expanding your worldview, whether or not that means leaving the country, expanding your worldview is important because you're always learning. I think that's the kernel that I take away from this. So thank you again, Tennah. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.